And a lot of people got into this industry wanting to design for screen first because that's how they could easily share their work with other people. But I think what we've seen in the last 10 years or so is people wanting to go back to that physical world again.
What's up, everyone? It's Eric Vessels with Taktiful. Welcome to Taktiful Tuesdays. Welcome back to another episode. I think this is episode 30, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know. I lose track. I didn't do a good enough job. But this is your go-to deep dive into the world of digital embellishments. Across each episode, we really try to explore how print meets innovation, enhancing traditional print with foil, varnish, spot UV, tactile textures, and more through expert insights, real-world examples, and a touch of fun as well. We always like to have fun. We built a dedicated community that sees print as sensory storytelling. Today, I'm super thrilled to introduce our guest, Mike Scrutton, Director of Print Technology and Strategy at Adobe. Mike has a rich background in print innovation. Recently unveiled Project Goldsmith at Amplify Prints, a really powerful solution for streamlining embellishment workflows. He also has spoken widely on how digital variable data and on-demand printing are reshaping the sector. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Eric, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Long-time fan, first-time caller.
First-time caller, long-time fan. I love it. I love it. Well, it's so glad to have you on. You were really one of the people that I had a short list that was really kind of long. I had like a whole lot of people that really wanted to get to, and super glad that I finally got to you. In case you're wondering, or anybody out there is wondering, I am not joining you from my normal studio at my home. I'm actually in Haverhill, Mass at the Museum of Printing. I'm actually in the gift shop at the Museum of Printing, which is I found the sweet spot for internet connection and a little bit quiet and kind of cool. So if you haven't visited the museum, come and say hi to Frank. We're doing a little digital embellishment symposium today, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about you. Mike, I want to know, as Director of Print Technology and Strategy, what sparked your passion for digital embellishments, and how did your path lead to Adobe? Like, tell us about your journey, friend.
Yeah, well, actually, you speak to me in a very auspicious week. I have just received my 30-year piece of solid brick from Adobe for having been knocking around for the last 30 years. So this is quite a weight here. So this is very good.
Mike, I want to tell you something weird that the universe just did for us. I just checked. This is episode 30.
Wow. How does that work out? You have to have me back for episode 30 yeah, okay. No,
you just got honored with 30 years. That is amazing. So tell us what that piece that you just showed us represents. Talk a little bit about that journey.
There's a long career here. Obviously, I speak with a funny accent. I hail from the old world of Great Britain. I actually spent, 10, 12 years with Adobe back in the United Kingdom. We were the first development team outside of North America in the world of print. And at the time, we were working in the UK to be close to our European partners and all our European customers when I started there back many, many, many moons ago, but always been in print. I think one of the fascinations that's kept me part of this industry is the very tactile nature, right? What we're making here, I was always into computers, but it's about how you take this stuff off the screen and make it real and make it, tactile and touching it and smelling the ink and showing somebody that, look, I made something. Maybe it goes back to putting things on my mother's refrigerator as a kid. Who knows? And of course, the world of embellishment is another manifestation of that, even more so, right? Because it's such an emotive thing that allows people to really, really not just get used to the idea that there's an object here with some colors on it. Well, now it's shiny, or now it's reflecting stuff at me. And it really is building this emotional bond with people that I think is really exciting.
Yeah, you're right. And I love what you said about taking that from the screen into the printed world, because really, I think in the industry, that's really what Adobe is identified with, right?
Yeah.
Building those tools that enable us to unleash that creativity that gets translated into the print world.
Yeah, you're in the Museum of Print now, right?
I
am. Of course, I mean, Adobe is synonymous with the world of desktop publishing from the 1980s and 90s. It's where we got started. The first product from Adobe was Adobe PostScript, which was how we were then going to describe what it was we wanted to print to these up and coming digital printing devices that you've got all around there. And the applications that Adobe have built around Illustrator and Photoshop and beyond, there are too many to mention now, are all about creating content on screen. And as the world evolved, in the turn of the last century, we're that old, right? But at the turn of the last century, it was as much about drawing stuff on the screen, not just for output in the physical world, where we had very high quality ways of reproducing. The screens never used to be such high quality, all right? If we remember how we started designing. But as the screen technology took up, we started designing stuff for the screen as well. And a lot of people got into this industry wanting design for screen first, because that's how they could easily share their work with other people. But I think what we've seen in the last 10 years or so is people wanting to go back to that physical world again, right? Realizing that what you see on the screen is transient. You're swiping it away, you're swiping to delete, you swipe to move on to the next thing. The printed world is so physical and so emotive. And it doesn't really matter, whether you're designing art that you're going to hang on your wall, or packaging that you're going to use to put in a store and let people connect with your product before you see it. That idea that you're designing for print for somebody to interact with, increases to be extremely relevant even in 2025.
Absolutely. And we're seeing a lot of stuff swing back, right? Like it's, as you know, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when screens had kind of a green glow to them, right? And they were very just,
and we got 30 characters
yeah.
across and 20 characters down. And that was the limit to what you could have on your screen. And frankly, I've got that resolution on my watch now. Mind blown, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And different fonts. But that was kind of the world we lived in. And we poured into these green screens, and that's how we described what we wanted to design. And actually, the printers had much higher fidelity than our screens did. Now, you can argue it's flipped the other way now. And a lot of people consume content that way.
Yeah, I think so. Speaking of how technology is evolving, Project Goldsmith was just recently reviewed at Amplify. And I've gotten a pretty good overview of it. I wondered if you could take us behind the scenes a little bit. What was the vision? What hurdles are you encountering and overcoming to bring this workflow automation tool to life? Because it's really about translating, isn't it? And that's kind of what Adobe continues to do year over year, is find ways to translate for us.
Yeah, it's so Project Goldsmith, if you've not seen it already, is a technology that allows the preparation of your digital files, PDF, let's say, and prepare it for any embellishment system that you happen to have, whatever the technology, whether it's a digital toner or a digital inkjet, or whether we're using hot or cold foils, or you're doing sleeking or whatever. All right. Whatever the technology is, Goldsmith is there intended to be used at production to take your PDF and prepare it for that equipment. All right. And I think as to the genesis behind it, Adobe has been around, like we said, since the evolution of digital print. And a lot of our desktop applications have the schizophrenic personality, right? On one hand, the application is there for the designer to capture all their amazing and beautiful ideas, right? And it's part of their process that they use to create content. But these tools have also been used by, let's call them pre-press departments, people close to the printer, to take a digital file and prepare it for the idiosyncrasies of whatever this production process was, right? And years ago, we used to think of this in terms of separations to CMYK. And of course, when we started doing a lot of this design digitally, we only designed in terms of CMYK because that's what the printer needed. Mm-hmm. We would scan photos in CMYK back in the day. We've moved on a long way from there now. We take photos in RGB or Camera Raw, we put them on applications, and the software worries about it. But I think one of the things that we've seen, and the reasons behind Goldsmith, was that a lot of people are still having to make these applications sing and dance and talk the language of a particular embellishment equipment from a particular manufacturer to be used for a particular job. And that's very, very time consuming. So, what we wanted to do with Goldsmith is sort of bridge that gap between the world of the designer and the producer, the manufacturer. So, for example, as a designer, I might be an Adobe Illustrator and I'll create tens, hundreds of layers in my job because it's how I conceive it. The logo is here, some of the text is here, the image in the background is here, and there's lots of layers going on and off about how our design is. When it comes to wanting to print that with embellishment, it's not a one-to-one mapping between, well, all my text is going to be foil, or all my image is going to be just flooded with varnish, or it's a different way of thinking. So what Goldsmith is there to do is automate the bridge so that a designer can have however many layers they want, or design in whatever swatches they want to in their design. Goldsmith will take that and refactor it, normalize it, call it what you like, ready for the appropriate output device. So if you've got an output device that needs maximum 2 layers, one for your CMYK artwork and another one for your gold foil, all right, then Goldsmith will process the file and do that optimization so it's now device ready. Or maybe you've got another device that needs spot colors, or a particular named spot color. It will just take your content and refactor it so that you've got that, whatever the device needs. Or maybe you're using toner reactive foil. Maybe you now need 2 PDF files because you're going to print it once in black on a toner-based device, and then you're going to put it through a laminator and apply foil to it, and then you're going to print over the top again. Goldsmith is there to generate the multiple PDF files from your one design so that the equipment that you're using can manufacture whatever is the artwork you have in mind. And that's really what's at the heart of Project Goldsmith.
Yeah, that's a great walkthrough and explanation, and it's solving a lot of the challenges that we're encountering at Taktiful Software Solutions also, right? Is like, how do we make this easy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That we ask that question all the time, and we ask it in multiple parts of the business, but especially within the software development, is just like, how do we make these tools that make things easy? And I think that's where we're going. It seems like that's where we're needing to head with what we're doing with digital embellishment and in print overall. And one thing I wanted to ask you about is on my list is kind of AI's role in that embellishment design. We're seeing stuff like Taktiful. We're utilizing AI across all 3 really of our pieces of software. From your perspective, how is AI reshaping embellishment design, proofing, printing, or the industry at large? Like, what's the effect that that's having on how we're able to engineer it so that it is easy to go from vision to output?
Yeah, I mean, AI is a very powerful technology. It gives us superpowers, right? So we can do stuff that we couldn't have thought of doing before. When I'm talking to people, I actually want to temper the need for AI in some of this space. It's a great tool for creativity. One of the things that AIs have been used for heavily is the idea of taking, let's say, a JPEG file, a flattened RGB image, and trying to work out, well, where's the text, where's the graphics, where's the photo in this image, and deconstructing it, reverse engineering a design, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
With the approach we're taking with Project Goldsmith, some of that we don't actually need, right? We're PDF centric. So in a PDF file, your text is already separate from your vector, is separate from your images. So some of that information we're preserving, and we don't need to extract that and redo it. But where we do find space for AI is saying, okay, given you've got this design, maybe you designed it with a bunch of swatches. Which of those? So first of all, reverse engineering. So which of the swatches you're using in your design, or the colors that you're using in your design, even if they were RGB, or which ones of those did you mean to infer that you wanted to use an embellishment at this point, right? So even if you didn't actually say, maybe you'd use Pantone 871C to define some strokes, but I know that's gold, and what you possibly meant there by that is that's what you wanted to use for embellishment, right? That side of things to allow us to say, maybe we drop some information on the floor, but what can we then extract from it? So that's one powerful area that we're using AI. Another area as well, and it's more of a design thing than it is actually necessarily an embellishment thing, is the applications from Adobe leverage Adobe Firefly for doing a whole bunch of additional super powery stuff.
Fantastic app.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than having to go and select every follicle of hair from a photograph of a person so you can separate it from the background, we use a whole bunch of AI power there to actually just do that thing about the selection. So it's tasks which you would have done yourself, but might have taken you hours, right?
Yes.
Days to make those very, very, very careful selections. We can apply AI to it, and we can do it in fractions of a second and make you more productive.
And I think that's exactly kind of my thinking around it, is like, raise that productivity, make it easier, allow creatives to be creative and take the busy work away.
Right.
So that,
Right.
and I think you're on the exact right track. That's kind of my philosophy too, is like, when people are just, when we talk to people about like this funnel of designers that all of this work has to go to, we're not talking about getting rid of the funnel. We're talking
Right.
about widening the funnel
Right.
so that those people who are creative can be more productive in the creative pursuits, not in the doldrums. It's what AI is doing for my work, right? Like my writing is much quicker than it used to be back in the day because I can start with a half chiseled block of granite and just have to fix it and make it pretty and presentable for me, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's great.
As designers, we're being asked to create more and more content, right? And whether you're designing for social, and so now you've got the aspect ratio of TikTok and
960.
YouTube and Instagram and right, and having to recreate the different aspect ratios, or whether you're doing this for print, have a use case. We went to Amplify. We want to do a banner and a postcard and a flyer, and we have an inspiration to do one of those things, and that's where our creative designers are coming in and saying, right, this is what the look should be. But now they've got to do it for a bunch of different aspect ratios, and how would it look if you're only going to do it like this, or how is it going to change if you want to change it to portrait? All right, it's very much driven by a designer that says, right, who understands what the requirements are and has come up with a design and will finesse the design. But like you say, the busy work of working out, well, how is we going to stretch this or like that or do this, and we want to focus over here, right? That's where the designer comes in. And to me, when I'm thinking about AI, I mean, I'm treating it like having a little mini me, right? There's a mini me who I want to delegate this task to. And cool, could you, while I'm thinking about this, can you go over there and do this other bit of busy work? And then I'll come back to you, and then we'll talk about how we're going to make it a little bit better or refine it. That's where AI sits next on my desk.
An
right,
assistant,
alongside
an
me.
assistant, right?
Right.
As you know, if you've watched any of these, one of the things I love to do is kind of find out a little more about the person. Before we wrap up here, I want to find out, when you're not kind of thinking about all this stuff or shaping print strategy, what's your creative outlet? What do you do to relax? Guilty pleasure thing? I see Grand Prix poster behind you. Like what are you into, man?
My wife has turned into a motor racing widow. So whenever there's a show coming up and it's near a race, I was in Long Beach for D-Scoop earlier in the year, but the Long Beach Grand Prix also in Long Beach. So I've got to go to that. That was fun. I'm going to another conference in Toronto next month, and it just happens to be Toronto Grand Prix weekend before. So I got out a few days earlier. So that's a bit of a guilty.
How that
That's a
happens,
guilty
Mike.
thing. Yeah. Funny how that happens. So I spend a lot of time doing that. Family, dogs, hiking, that sort of thing is another
Awesome.
thing.
What kind of dog?
He is a rescued cross between a pit and a Australian cattle dog. And that's why this door is blocked, because otherwise he'd be sitting on the floor just there.
I was going to just say that that equation in my brain solved for high energy.
Yeah. Lots of energy, more energy than me, but yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
All good.
Well, Mike, thanks so much. First of all, congratulations on 30 years.
Thank you.
And thanks for the 30th episode of Taktiful Tuesdays. I appreciate you joining me. Continue success with all the work that you do, trying to make print easier and creatives' lives easier. And we hope to continue. Taktiful and Adobe are actively working together and talking, and we hope to continue to do that. Thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it, and really enjoyed it.
Great. Thanks. And if anybody wants to find out anything more about what we're doing, adobe.com/go/embellishment.
All right. Now we'll try to get that link in when we publish this as well. Thanks for dropping that in there. Always looking for resources for people to learn more and extend even after these long form conversations. Mike, have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right. Take care, buddy.
See you, man.